All right, so you should have a note sheet in front of you. Let me get this camera fixed a little bit better. Make sure you are taking really good notes, and at the end of this, you will show the sub your completed notes to get the worksheet. Okay. All right, so we are going to be starting our last unit of the year. Okay. So the notes say you can use this is called the Pythagorean theorem. It's a really fun one to say. So you can use the Pythagorean theorem to, and I forgot a word here, it should say to find the missing side length of any right triangle. Hopefully you recall that a right triangle has a 90-degree angle. Okay. The Pythagorean theorem uses the same formula every single time. It's a squared plus b squared equals c squared. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. The A and the B are going to form the 90-degree angle. So in a right triangle, the two sides that form the 90-degree angle, so these two right here that form the 90-degree angle, are going to be called the legs. They can be used interchangeably. So like this can be A, and that one could be B, or this one could be B, and this one could be A. That doesn't necessarily matter. The C is known as the hypotenuse. It is the longest side length, and it is the only side length that does not form, let's underline, does not form the 90-degree angle. So when we have a right triangle, it's the only side of the triangle that does not touch that 90-degree angle. Okay, so that's side C. So I kind of already did this in the first part of the notes, but let's label this triangle right here. So the longest side, and I do the hypotenuse two ways. I find the 90-degree angle, and if you draw an arrow away from it, that's always going to be C, the hypotenuse. Like I said earlier, the A and the B make up the 90-degree angle. And they are called the legs. All right, so now let's put it into action. So really what we're doing is we're solving for one thing that we don't know. So if we look at this first example right here, they've told us one side length is 4 inches, one side length is 7 inches, and they want us to find this other side length over here. They want us to tell them how long it is. If I use the formula a squared plus b squared equals c squared, then we can find out any of the three unknowns. So I first go through and label what I have. So the 4 inches and the 7 inches make up that 90-degree angle. So that means one of these is A and one of them is B. Since we can use A and B interchangeably, it doesn't matter which one's A and which one's B. So what that means is we are looking for our C value. So we're going to plug in what we know. So our formula is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Well, A is 4 and B is 7. So what we don't know is c squared. So now I have to use my calculator. Hopefully you recall what 4 squared is. That just means 4 times 4. So you can type in 4 times 4. Or you can type in 4, and over here, this x squared you can hit that and hit enter. So 4 squared is 16. 7 squared is 49. So remember, the point of solving an equation is to get the variable by itself. So I need to add 14 and 69, or 49 together, 16 and 49 together, to get 65. So notice, guys, that this c is still being squared. So I have to do the opposite operation to get that squared, that little exponent, off of the c. The opposite of squaring something is the square root. So what we're going to do is we're going to square root both sides of the equation. What that does is it gets the c by itself. It makes that little 2 go away. But what I have to do over here is I have to square root the number 65. So on your calculator, if you hit second and then hit that x squared button, you notice up there above the button in light blue, you'll see the square root sign. It should pop up on your screen. Not sure if you can really see that on there. And then type in 65 and hit enter. A majority of the time, it's going to come out as a really long decimal. Mine says 8.0622577748. So if it comes out as a whole number, that's great. If not, always round to the nearest tenth. So I have 8.06, so that 6 tells me to round that 0 up to a 1. So 8.1. Okay, let's do the next one. This one's turned a little bit, but we're still going to be able to find the 90-degree angle. So here's the 90-degree angle. These two sides that make the 90-degree angle are going to be A or B, and the other one, our unknown, is going to be C. I want you to pause the video and see if you can plug it in and solve for the C value. All right, I went ahead and plugged in the numbers. 5 squared is 25. 12 squared is 144. 25 plus 144 is 169. So how I get that 2 off, I square root both sides of the equation. Remember, what you do to one side of the equation, you have to do to the other. Take the square root of 169 and I get 13. That one comes out evenly. So you should have got C equals 13. Okay, so same thing here. Here's our 90-degree angle. So the two sides that make up the 90-degree angle are always going to be A or B. That means this one over here has to be C. So we have 7 squared plus 24 squared equals C squared. 7 squared is 49. We already did that one. 24 squared is 576. Make sure you write all of that down so I can see where your numbers are coming from. If we add these two together, I get 625. Again, get the square root to take that exponent off. Second square root, 625, comes out evenly at 25. If that was too fast for you, feel free to go back and pause it, rewatch any of those examples. We have 2 more examples that are pretty simple. You just need to draw yourself a picture for them. So it says, what is the length of the hypotenuse? So they're already telling us we don't know the C value. Of a right triangle with legs that are 9 inches and 40 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and draw myself a picture. Obviously, it's not drawn to scale, but one of them is going to be 9 inches, one's going to be 40 inches, so I don't know C. So I'm going to plug one in for A, the other one in for B, and set up my equation. So we take 9 squared, we get 81. Take 40 squared, we get 1,600. Add that to 81, we get 1,681. Again, the opposite of squaring a number is square rooting it. So I have to do that to both sides. I hit second x squared. Type it in. Get 41, and since this is a word problem, I need to label it as 41 inches. Remember, the hypotenuse should always be your longest side length. So if I get a number over here and I get, let's say I get 18 inches, I know that I did something wrong because the C is always going to be your longest side length. So if it's smaller than A or B, then I did something wrong and I need to figure out what I did wrong and fix it. All right, let's read the last one. Oops. So it says, if a right triangle, let's draw a picture. If a right triangle has two side lengths that form a 90-degree angle, so these are these ones right here that form that 90-degree angle, that measure at 4.3 centimeters and 7.9 centimeters, what is the length of the third side length? So this is what we don't know. Go ahead and pause it, see if you can calculate it correctly, and make sure you label. It says round to the nearest tenth, so you're probably going to have to round on this one. So those are the legs, so I'm going to plug those in for A or B. Use my calculator, 4.3 squared. Guys, make sure you write down the entire number. Do not round until the very end. Add those two numbers together. All right, last step is always to square root both sides to get C by itself. Square root of 80.9. Ooh, we get 8.99. So since I'm going to actually write that down. I got 8.99. This 9's going to round my other 9 up. Well, what it actually ends up doing is rounding it up to a whole number. So we're actually going to end up with 9 centimeters equals C. Guys, make sure when it's a rounding thing that you write down at least the 2 digits behind and then round from there. That way, if you have a rounding error, I can at least see what your numbers were before you did the rounding. All right. I know that was kind of quick, but hopefully it feels like it's an easy topic for you. Go ahead and raise your hand when you're done taking the notes. If you need to go back and watch any part of it, go back and watch. But raise your hand and get the worksheet. Make sure on the worksheet that you are showing all of your work. So I did 5 examples for you, showing all of my work every single time. So make sure you show all of your work to get any of the credit. Okay?